In a quiet corner of rural Nevada, nestled within the unforgiving desert, sits Federal Base Alpha, a high-security training facility for the Federal Protective Services. Known for housing elite agents tasked with securing vital government assets, it had an aura of impenetrability, even among locals who rarely gave it a second thought. But one hot summer evening, a small biker gang, the Desert Wolves, would change that. The gang, known for their reckless behavior and iron-fisted rule over the highways, had been itching for trouble for weeks. They roamed the remote stretches of Route 50, picking fights, causing chaos, and living a life on the edge. The leader, Viper, a hulking man with tattoos snaking down both arms, had a reputation that preceded him. He had been pushing his crew deeper into federal territory, testing their limits, as if daring the authorities to respond. One fateful night, they rolled up to a desolate bar on the outskirts of the base. The place was dead silent, save for the hum of the jukebox and the occasional clink of beer bottles. But as Viper and his crew swaggered in, the tension was palpable. What they didn't know was that one of the patrons was an off-duty federal agent, Sergeant Cole Walker, who had just returned from a mission abroad. His military-cut hair and cold, calculating demeanor were enough to let anyone know he was no ordinary civilian. Viper, spotting him almost immediately, saw an opportunity to flex his muscle. The gang had made a habit of terrorizing those they considered weak or unworthy. With a loud, arrogant voice, he mocked Walker, calling him a pussy and making jabs at his service. A few of the other bikers gathered around, egging on their leader. Walker, though visibly unimpressed, remained quiet at first, his hand resting on his beer. But as the taunts grew bolder, something inside him snapped. He wasn't some random vet looking for a fight. He was a seasoned soldier of the Federal Protective Services. His patience had limits. In a blink, the tables turned. With precision and speed, Walker disarmed two of the bikers who had tried to challenge him. His calm demeanor belied the intensity of his training years spent under intense military discipline and specialized combat tactics. The room fell silent as Walker calmly sized up the bikers, his cold blue eyes sending a message to the rest of them. "Not the smartest move, gentlemen," Walker said, his voice low and dangerous. Viper, furious at having his intimidation crumbled so easily, pulled out a knife and lunged at him. But Walker was already a step ahead. With fluidity that seemed almost preternatural, he disarmed Viper in a flash, sending the blade clattering to the ground. A brutal strike to Viper's chest sent the biker stumbling back, blood dripping from a wound that would ensure he wouldn't be riding for a while. The other bikers hesitated, realizing they had underestimated their opponent. But before any of them could make a move, Walker's backup arrived, two of his colleagues from the Federal Protective Services, who had been quietly observing from a nearby corner. With that, the bikers realized they were outmatched and outclassed. "Leave now," Walker said, his voice cold and calm. "You don't want to test us again." A tense silence stretched across the room as the bikers scrambled to gather their injured leader. With one final glare, they retreated into the desert night, the roar of their motorcycles fading into the distance. The incident would become local legend, with whispers spreading about the day the Desert Wolves crossed paths with a soldier who was much more than they could handle. Sergeant Walker, however, shrugged it off. He didn't need recognition. He had done his job, and the Wolves had learned an important lesson. You don't mess with someone who's trained to protect, no matter how tough you think you are. But for the bikers, their lives had just changed. The reputation of Federal Base Alpha was now very real, and it wasn't just the government that kept it secure. It was the soldiers like Walker, those who had seen the darkness of the world and were willing to stand guard over the light.